जगद्गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय। निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरे Hare Krishna. So I'm very happy to be with all the devotees of Kanhaiya Desh. And as Prabhu was saying, I got fortune to visit Kanhaiya Desh couple of times, and I could see the wonderful relationships between devotees and the way enthusiastically Krishna consciousness is spreading. Last time we went, there was big Rath Yatra festival. The thousands of devotees assembled. I guess it was a school, like indoor stadium. A lot of devotees came, and I was wondering that in a country like Kuwait, so many devotees are there, and they are practicing. Krishna consciousness is expanding. Surely it is in Srila Prabhupada's special mercy. So I'm very, very fortunate to have your association, and I beg for your blessings because I am uh, I'm very immature, young, and childish. So in your association, maybe I can learn something. So considering me as your child, please bless me so that I can render some service to you. Hare Krishna. So I was asked to speak on Srimad Bhagavatam, fourth canto. Is the screen visible? You can see.
Yes, Prabhuji, we can see.
So today we will be starting with Canto 4. I believe the first three cantos are already complete, and now we are moving on to Canto 4th. And as I was reading this canto, the very first verse of this canto, when Srila Prabhupada starts, he offers his humble obeisances to his spiritual master, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And he seeks his blessings. He asks for his blessings. He asks for the blessings of Lord Chaitanya, six Goswamis, Sri Sri Radha Krishna. And then he starts into the subject of fourth canto. So I was just reflecting on how it is so important to seek blessings. This path of devotional service is actually path of grace. With our own endeavor, we can't achieve Krishna, but we can only receive his blessings through his devotees, through his merciful incarnations, through his expansions. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada is starting this canto with telling the importance of Guru's blessings. We all know this verse is very popular. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate grim yat kripatamaham vande Sri Guru Dinatarini. That even a dumb person can speak, a handicapped person can cross mountains. One who is favored by the mercy of Guru, he can do anything. So Srila Prabhupada is setting perfect example of disciple by showing us how to start any spiritual endeavor. So following his footsteps, we would like to offer our obeisances to all our spiritual masters, our Diksha Guru and Siksha Gurus, and we'll beg their blessings so that we can serve Srimad Bhagavatam by reading it. Srimad Bhagavatam is Krishna's incarnation in the form of scripture, Vangamaya avatar. So we are very fortunate that we are getting access to Krishna through Srila Prabhupada, through our spiritual masters. And then Srila Prabhupada is also seeking blessings of Shada Goswamis, Sri Rup Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath, Sri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Das Raghunath. So these six Goswamis are actually the storehouse of mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Srinivasacharya glorifies Shad Goswamis by saying that they purify the sins of all conditioned souls just by their own bhajan, just by their own chanting of Krishna's name. we are doubtful many times our chanting will purify ourselves or not. But Shata Goswamis, they are so pure, so dedicated to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission that their chanting, their smaran of Krishna's name is purifying all the conditioned souls. And therefore it is told, "E chai gosai karo charana bandhan, jahan hoite vignanash avishta puran." When we seek shelter of these six Goswamis and we serve their lotus feet, then all obstacles in our devotional service get nullified. Vignanash and avishta puran. Whatever spiritual desires we have, Krishna will very mercifully fulfill. So let's go in the overview of fourth canto. Fourth canto actually deals with secondary creation. As we have read in the previous cantos, who does primary creation? Primary creation is done by the Supreme Lord Vishnu himself. And then secondary creation is done by Lord Brahma. And Brahma gives birth, or many Manus appear from Brahma's body. And the first one is Swayambhava Manu. He doesn't have any mother. So he's called as Swayam Bhava. Bhava means to happen. And Swayam means he appeared himself. Because all of us, we appear through some mother. But Swayambhava Manu is not having any mother. He came through Brahma. Therefore, he is called Swayambhava. And the conversation is going on between Vidur and Maitreya. Maitreya Rishi heard the transcendental knowledge from Krishna himself. Before departing for his own abode, Krishna is giving very important instructions, which are called as Uddhav Gita, and Maitreya also heard those instructions. And Vidura is requesting Maitreya to speak about various transcendental subjects. So in previous canto, we already started to hear about Manu's descendants. Manu has 3 daughters, Devahuti, Prashuti and Akuti, and 2 sons, Priyavart and Uttanpad. So in previous canto, we already read about Devahuti. And now this canto will be dealing with Prashuti and Akuti. And then further descendants of Uttanpad, where we will read about Dhruv Maharaj and then subsequently about Prithu Maharaj. So this canto is very, very important and very famous for so many important pastimes and so many vital instructions for our devotional service. And therefore, we know how much Srila Prabhupada stressed on reading his books very, very deeply. Srila Prabhupada wanted us that even though we are too busy, we should spare at least a couple of hours to read his books. And unfortunately, many of us, at least me, I fail in reading Prabhupada books that sincerely. But Prabhupada cautioned, Prabhupada gave warning in his Chaitanya Charitamrita purports. Prabhupada told that if you will not read my books, one day you will simply eat, sleep, and fall down. So Prabhupada gave that warning in his purports, and therefore we should, as the followers of Srila Prabhupada, we should be very, very sincere to systematically read Srila Prabhupada books. So this facility of going through canto by canto, chapter by chapter, and you're utilizing in Purushottam month is very, very ideal example. Like now nobody can say I don't know about Bhagavatam, because we all will have a perfect review about Srimad Bhagavatam. Like when we went in Orlando in Disney World, so their employees are given a specific instruction. Their employees are told you can't use the phrase I don't know. Like suppose any employee is sweeping the street and any visitor asks him anything about Disney World. He can't say I don't know. He has to tell something, some information. Either he can tell where you can go, what information or something or other information he has to give. In the same way, followers of Srila Prabhupada, if somebody asks us what is in this canto, what is in this chapter, we can't tell, I don't know. We should have some or other understanding at least. That will establish ourselves as the employees of Hare Krishna movement. And that is the way Prabhupada is encouraging us. Like a few days back, we went to Shipra River. In Ujjain, we have Shipra River where Kumbh Mela happens. So there, one devotee was showing me that one monkey, mother monkey, was trying to teach its baby how to swim. And the way she was teaching is, she was calling monkey baby, and the mother was sitting on the end of the branch of the tree, and below was the river. So that mother monkey was sitting on the tip of the branch, and she was calling the baby. So baby will naturally go to the mother. So baby was running and coming towards the mother, and mother just went little aside, and he fell in the water. When he fell in the water, that time he was trying to swim. He was struggling. And some or other he came to the bank. Then mother again chastised and pushed him inside water. Then again he was struggling. And we were watching all this episode, and this Prabhu was telling me, see, mother is not enemy of the baby monkey. Mother wants baby monkey to learn how to swim. Therefore, when we go into Srila Prabhupada purports, it's not that it's very complicated, it will confuse us, this and that. But Prabhupada wanted us to learn all this. Who is Prashuti, who is Akuti, who is Devhuti, or descendants. May little bit complicated. Creation, again and again creation. Second canto creation. Third canto again creation. Fourth canto further creation. So we have become little bit, oh, how many times I'll hear this creation? But this is for us to grow more strong in our devotional service. So in the part 1, we will read first 7 chapters today. Not read means we'll have an overview of first 7 chapters, which are mainly dealing with Lord Shiva and the fire sacrifice of Daksha. So first chapter is about the daughters of Manu. So as we shared, we already discussed about Devahuti in last canto. So this canto starts with Akuti. Akuti is also Manu and Shatrupa's daughter. Manu and Shatrupa had 3 daughters, Akuti, Devahuti, Prashuti. Now, Akuti was married to Prajapati Ruchi, and they gave birth to a beautiful couple, Yagya and Dakshina. Although they were born from same mother and father, they were not brothers and sisters. They were eternal couple, where Yagya is the Yuga avatar and Dakshina is part and parcel of, not part and parcel, actually expansion of Lakshmi. And Manu adopts Yagya and Ruchi keeps Dakshina, and then finally they get married and they gave birth to 12 sons. These 12 sons became chief demigods in that realm, in that time period of Manu. Every Manu has a certain time period. And that time period, there are 14 Manus in one day of Brahma, and each Manu has certain time period, 72 Chaturyugas. And this time period, all demigods, set of demigods change. So in this particular Manvantar of Swayambhavu Manu, the chief Devtas became the sons of Yagya. They were called Tushitas. And Indra was Yagya himself, who was Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then the second daughter is Devahuti. Devahuti, as we know, was married to Kardam Muni. We heard in last canto. And she gave birth to 9 daughters and 1 son. And that son was Supreme Personality of Godhead, Kapil Dev. And Devahuti's 9 daughters were married to 9 great sages. And one of them was Anusuya and Atri. So when Maitreya Rishi was telling this, so Vidura asked that why did Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva take birth from Anusuya? Tell me. So then Maitreya told a story about Anusuya and Atri. Anusuya and Atri, actually Atri in particular, did 100 years of sacrifice in Rishak mountain. And Atri was having only one desire, that he wanted his son as equal to the Supreme Lord. So he was doing his sacrifice, his austerities so sincerely that with the Teja, the influence of his austerities, fire was emanating and it was started to burn the three worlds. So then Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, they were discussing what this person wants. And then Brahma told that he is calling for the controller of this universe. So we all three are controllers. So actually we all three have to go. So all three of them came to Atri. And Atri was not in particular, he was calling Vishnu or Shiva or Brahma, because he just called controller of the universe, please come. So all three of them are controller. So Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu, all three of them came and they told, we fulfill your desire, we'll become your sons. So Brahma became Soma and Shiva became Bhrigu and Vishnu became Dattatreya. And these three personalities took birth from Anusuya. And Dattatreya became Avadhut, which we will read in 11th canto, where Prahlad Maharaj gets instruction from Dattatreya. So that's how this was the dynasty of Devabhuti. Now, mainly today we will discuss about Prashuti and Prashuti's daughters. Prashuti was married to Daksha Prajapati. We all know Daksha Prajapati is a very famous character, and he was married to Prashuti and gave birth to 16 daughters. 13 out of those 16 daughters were married to Dharma, and 13th daughter Murti, she gave birth to Naranarayan. These Naranarayan rishis eternally do austerity in Badrikashram, which we call now Badrinath. And these two Naranarayan entered in Krishna and Arjun in Dwapar Yuga, and therefore some people called Krishna as avatar of Narayan and Arjun as avatar of Nara. So therefore Krishna and Arjun are called Naranarayan. And then Naranarayan, these three sons, gave birth to 45 further children who became main prominent 49 children of the Agni. And these are the main sacrifices which we do. When we do sacrifices, these 49 persons are put oblations. So like that, there were 15 daughters of Daksha Prajapati. And 16th was Sati. Sati was married to Lord Shiva and there was no child. So then suddenly Vidura became very, very excited. And Vidura asked, why Sati had no child? Why Lord Shiva and Sati had no child? So then Maitreya Rishi became very happy and he elaborated the story of Lord Shiva and Sati. How Sati could not have child and Lord Shiva was not having any child till the point Sati was there. Then Sati left, later Parvati came, then he had children. So second chapter deals with how Daksha curses Shiva. So Vidura tells Maitreya tells Vidura that you know why Sati could not give birth to a child, because she gave up her body in Daksha's yajna and therefore she was not having any children. So that gave rise to another question. How could Daksha hate Shiva? How could Sati give up her life? Vidura was asking Maitreya that Daksha is called as Dhuti Vatsala. She loved her daughter so much. How Daksha can tolerate that his daughter is committing suicide? And Shiva is full of qualities. So many limitless qualities. He is Shilavata Shrestha. He is most cultured. Chara Achara Guru. He is the spiritual master of the whole world. He is Nirvaira. He doesn't have any enemy. He's Shant Vigraha. He's always peaceful. He's Atmaram. He's self-satisfied. He's Jagato Devata Mahat. He is the best among the demigods. Then also, how is it possible that Daksha could have any enmity with Lord Shiva, because of which Sati committed suicide? How is this possible? So then Maitreya Rishi elaborates how Daksha insults and curses Lord Shiva. Daksha conducts one big sacrifice. Actually, it was conducted by all the universal creators of this world. Sacrifices, that was the yuga of sacrifices. As we know, Yagya was the Yuga Purush, Yoga Avatar. So Yoga Avatar was Yagya, and the main duty of mankind was to offer Yagyas. So great sages and demigods, everybody assembled and they planned for a big Yagya. Now every Yagya there has to have one Yajman. Demigods are the beneficiaries of Yagya. But there has to have one Yajman from the mortal world, sometimes not from mortal world, but he has to be a person who can give charity, who can conduct the sacrifice. So they selected Prajapati Daksha as the main Yajman of the sacrifice. So all these demigods were sitting, beautiful decorations were done, elaborate arrangements for the sacrifice were arranged, and Daksha enters the assembly hall. When Daksha enters the assembly hall, everybody stands and they give respect to Daksha Prajapati, except Brahma and Shiva. So Daksha goes to Lord Brahma and offers his obeisances because Daksha's elder is Brahma. But when he sees Shiva is not rising up, he could not tolerate. He was thinking that Lord Shiva is my son-in-law. Why he is not giving me respect? And that angered Daksha. And he started to abuse Lord Shiva. He started to put many allegations on him. Daksha was telling that you don't know the conduct of the court. You don't even know what is etiquette. You accepted my daughter's hand, but you don't accept me as your superior. You don't accept me as your father-in-law. You are a monkey-eyed rascal. You fail to give me respect, even through words. You don't know how to perform rituals. You always remain impure. You violate all codes of respect. In fact, your name is only Shiva. Shiva means auspicious. He's saying your name is only Shiva. Actually, there is nothing auspicious in you. You have all inauspicious signs in you. You roam naked like a madman. You live in crematorium. You put, this garland of bones and skulls, and you live with ghosts. You are practically insane. And I would have never given my daughter to you in marriage just because Lord Brahma told, I give you my daughter in marriage. So, like that, series of aparadh, series of offenses Daksha did. He was seeing Lord Shiva materially. See, whole world was respecting Lord Shiva. Whole world knows position of Lord Shiva. But Daksha failed to see just because of material vision. Like if everybody is tasting some sweet and they are feeling it very nice, and when we taste it, we are feeling it is bitter, that means we have jaundice. We have problem. Not that that sweet is bitter. In the same way, everybody respected Lord Shiva, but Daksha had problem. That is because Daksha was not at all aware of the spiritual position of Lord Shiva. He was thinking, he is my Jamai, he is my son-in-law. How can he not respect me? Then Daksha came to the epitome of his stupidity and he cursed Lord Shiva. He cursed that may Lord Shiva not receive a portion of sacrifice along with other demigods. And as he cursed, Daksha left the assembly. Without even conducting the sacrifice, he just left. What is the reason for this offense? How can somebody become so stupid to curse Lord Shiva? The reason is simple, it was Daksha's material vision. Like we can imagine, like we are now discussing in this Zoom, you know, suddenly if we get one more connection and just if hypothetically we think Shad Goswamis come into video. They are wearing kopin, they are putting some cloth on the top, and they are matted hair. They are not maintaining their body nicely. What we will think? We will think some beggars joined, because we have material vision. We can't recognize the spiritual personalities. Even to recognize some spiritual personality, we have to have a spiritual vision. And Daksha, being blinded by his material opulence, forgot everything. He was thinking that Lord Shiva is materialistic person. He is just my son-in-law. Same happened with Chitraketu. He saw Lord Shiva and he offended. Same happened with Indra. He saw Brihaspati coming in his court, could not give proper respect, and there is whole chapter named as Indra offends Brihaspati. Same happened in first canto, you must have read how Parikshit saw Samik Rishi sitting in meditation and he saw that he is not offering me respect. Of course, Prabhupada tells that it is Krishna's arrangement to have Srimad Bhagavatam appear. But still, if we get the lesson from the past time, Parikshit was acting as if, he couldn't see Samik Rishi in a proper respect. Same happened with Duryodhan. When he saw Krishna's Virat Roop in the assembly hall, Duryodhan was thinking Krishna is a magician. He even after seeing Krishna's Virat Roop, Duryodhan didn't accept him as Lord. Same happened with Pondrak. Pondrak saw Krishna and he sent letter to Krishna that I am real Vasudev and you give up your Kaustuva gel, you give up your Shankha and you give up your Chakra. So this is the height of like foolishness somebody can enact. He is the cheater and he's sending Krishna letter that you give up your science because I am the original Krishna. So in this way, materialistic vision causes so many problems. We also read in third canto, there is example of this. Four Kumaras, they come to Vaikuntha and Jai Vijay think that, oh, these four, small children without any clothes, they're roaming around and they want to see Vishnu. They stopped four Kumaras. And four Kumaras cursed these Jai Vijayas, saying that you are bodily conscious, you're not fit for Vaikuntha. So in the same way, this bodily conception, this material vision led to so many offenses. Daksha started with one offense, but we'll see subsequently so much harm has happened just by one person's mistake. As Daksha left, and Daksha already cursed Lord Shiva, Shiva's followers became very, very enraged. They started to curse Daksha. Nandi cursed Daksha that you become fool. You become a materialistic person who just knows about body. You forget Supreme Personality of Godhead. You just become absorbed in Karma Kanda. And ultimately, you get a head of a goat. So, ultimately, Nandi's words became true. And he cursed Daksha because he was so pained in his heart by hearing Lord Shiva's blasphemy. Srila Prabhupada told many times that Krodha Bhakta Dveshi Jana. If we want to engage our anger, best thing is we use that anger on the people who are envious to the devotees of Lord. And Nandi did the same. Here is an example of Indradyumna Swami Maharaj he shared one time. He was traveling with Srila Prabhupada, it was his first travel. And they came to airport and Prabhupada used to carry one small bag, a little bag with his passport, ticket and other things. And the security person was very rude to Srila Prabhupada. He was saying, show your bag. What is there? Stand straight. He is not behaving nicely. And Indradyumna Maharaj could not tolerate. He went right close to that security person. He said, if you behave like this with my spiritual master, I'll punch you straight on your nose. Did you understand? So that person became very fearful. He didn't expect that even sadhus tell like that. So-called spiritual people also act like that. But yes, if our spiritual master, if Vaishnavas, Krishna is offended, a follower is bound to take some action. So Nandi cursed not only Daksha, but Nandi also cursed his followers. Nandi told to Daksha's followers that let all of you just take repeated birth and death. You become completely attached to your karma and you become ultimately beggars who are just looking for some enjoyment of body and senses. So these curses were so crude that now followers of Daksha became enraged. And Bhrigu, who was the Purohit of Daksha, began to curse Shiva's followers. And he told all Shiva's followers will become atheists. They will become obstacles to genuine scriptures. So much so that they will forget the ultimate subject matter of the Vedas, which is Lord Krishna, and they will just be attached to impersonalism. So when these counter curses and counter curses were going on, then everybody was harming each other. This is the nature of material world. Once it starts, there is no end to it. Once the fighting starts, there is no end to it. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu many times told, like, our real weapon is Sankirtan. Otherwise, if we start fighting, there is no end to it. Lord Shiva left. When these curses and counter curses were going on, Lord Shiva was not interested. Oh, they are fighting for me, so I should support them. No. He heard that now these curses are going on. He peacefully stood up and left. Because Lord Shiva was least interested about his own image. He was just concerned that if they start to curse each other like this, they will harm each other to the degree that they will even accuse Lord Krishna or Lord Vishnu. So before they offend Lord Vishnu, let me just leave this place. So Lord Shiva left that place, and in spite of absence of Lord Shiva and Daksha, other people, other Lokpals, they performed the sacrifice for 1,000 years. Nothing happened. They left. There was no result of that sacrifice, so they left. Now, many years passed. Daksha was in his place, Lord Shiva was in his place, and the enmity was continuing. Daksha could not tolerate Lord Shiva's glory. And here Lord Shiva was completely satisfied, meditating on the Supreme Lord. He was fixed in his devotional service. One day, Sati saw that so many people are going from Kailash, above Kailash. They were heavenly planes which were going, and she saw her sisters going in the Daksha's palace. And she understood that Daksha is performing some sacrifice. So she told Lord Shiva that I want to go and I want to participate in the Yajna. So then Sati tries to convince Lord Shiva. She tells, no, no, at father's place, in friend's house, husband house, we can go without invitation. What is the problem if Daksha didn't invite us? No problem. All my sisters are going, my mother will be there, I want to meet my relatives. I am very conditioned, I am woman, you are very self-controlled. But let me go. Let me go, let me participate in father's yajna. Lord Shiva tried to convince Sati. So many logics Lord Shiva told. That see, yes, it is good to go at father's place, friend's place, husband's place without invitation, no problem. But not to the people who are not having a favorable disposition towards you. Daksha will not welcome you properly. Don't go. You can't tolerate your near ones' neglect. You can't tolerate their harsh words. It's easier to tolerate harsh words from unknown people, but it's very, very difficult to tolerate harsh words from our own near and dear ones. And Lord Shiva cautioned Sati, don't do that. If you go, it may even lead to your death. But then also, Sati was not convinced. She was roaming here and there, and she was making some marks on the ground with her feet, nails. She was very, very angry. She was in two minds. She wanted to go, but she was also thinking about Lord Shiva's advice. She was convinced that I have to go. And Lord Shiva also didn't object, because Lord Shiva understood that in any case she will go. And even if she stays, out of anger, she will leave her body. And if she goes to Daksha Yajna, out of disrespect and neglect, she will leave her body. So Lord Shiva smiled and in a way didn't object Sati's going. And Sati started for Daksha's place. So somebody may ask this, Lord Shiva knew that Sati will die. Why didn't he stop Sati? Because Lord Shiva also knew that Sati is not in position to accept advice. If Shiva would have stopped her further, Sati would have offended Lord Shiva, and that would be the end of everything in her life. So therefore, Lord Shiva didn't stop Sati. Like Srila Prabhupada, one time, one devotee came to Srila Prabhupada and he asked Srila Prabhupada that, Prabhupada, I want to get divorced. Now, Prabhupada in his preaching, in his teaching, in his books was against this. But Prabhupada agreed, okay, you can get divorced. And he left. The secretary asked Prabhupada, Prabhupada, how you could approve that devotee? You are against this. How can you approve his taking divorce? So then Prabhupada said, he was so determined, he would have anyway taken divorce. And if I would have told him no and he would have still taken divorce, that was the end of his spiritual life. So therefore, I told him, okay, you can do that. At least I saved his spiritual life. So in that mood, Lord Shiva agreed, okay, you can go and participate in Daksha Yajna. So Sati goes. When he goes to Daksha place, Shiva's followers were accompanying her, and she was expecting that her father will receive her just like previous times. But Daksha completely ignored Sati. Only mothers and sisters welcomed, but Sati was completely ignored by Daksha. Just like Dhruva Maharaj felt so much pain when Suruchi told harsh words, but more than Suruchi's harsh words, Dhruva was affected by his father's silence. Uttanpad didn't tell anything to Suruchi, and that hurt Dhruva Maharaj even more. In the same way, Sati was so much heartbroken because Daksha didn't even look at Sati. And then she also saw that there was no sacrifice offering kept for Lord Shiva. And she was so hurt and so angered that she started to condemn Daksha. She was telling that Lord Shiva is the topmost sadhu. The least standard of a sadhu is he sees faults of somebody and transforms them into qualities. Second grade of sadhu, higher than that, is he only sees good, he doesn't see faults. Even higher than that, sadhu is he sees little good and magnifies it. But Lord Shiva is such grade of sadhu that even though there is no good, then also he will see only good in the person. And you are offending such a Vaishnava. Maybe Lord Shiva must have forgiven you, but the dust at the lotus feet of Vaishnava will never forgive you. This dust may represent his followers, like Sati herself. She could not follow. And she told that since this body, this contaminated body came from you, I will give up this body. And with the fire of her yogic power, Sati gave up her body. Lord Shiva's followers became so angry that Sati burned herself. Sati killed herself. What we will tell to Lord Shiva? They became so angry, they started to charge on Daksha. They wanted to kill Daksha. So Brigu, who was Daksha's Purohit, he created Rubus, and they were fighting against Shiva's followers, and Shiva's followers left the place. On the other hand, Narad told Shiva about whole incident. And Shiva was so angry. He is famous for his anger. Shiva's anger can destroy the whole world. Shiva plucked his hair and created Virabhadra. Virabhadra is expansion of Lord Shiva, and Virabhadra attacked Daksha, destroyed everything, women quarters, pillars, arena of Yajna. They urinated on the pits of Yajna pits, harassed the women, beated the demigods present there. Somebody's hand was broken, some leg is broken, somebody's body got distorted. Virabhadra tore off Bhrigu's mustache because Bhrigu was the main priest and mustache is like the sense of pride of Bhrigu. He tore off the mustache of Bhrigu, and Pusha was laughing when Daksha was offending um, Lord Shiva. Pusha was laughing. So Virabhadra broke Pusha's teeth and Bhaga's eyes. They plucked out Bhaga's eyes. That's how they were destroying everything. And finally, Virabhadra killed Daksha by chopping off his head with an axe. This is the result of Vaishnava Aparadh. One simple, misunderstanding of Daksha led destruction of so many people, loss of so much property. So much has happened just because Daksha offended Lord Shiva. Now, Brahma and other demigods were very, very concerned. What will happen to the sacrifice? Ultimately, because of one person's stupidity, it should not happen that whole world will suffer. So Brahma and other demigods approached Lord Shiva. Brahma told that Lord Shiva is such a personality, you demigods, you are such rascals. You heard that Shiva is offended, and then also you didn't do anything. Better you should die. This is this is the appropriate behavior if we hear Vaishnava Aparadh. Brahma is saying, since you offended such great soul like Shiva, you should at least die. Or if you cannot die, go and beg forgiveness from Lord Shiva. So all the demigods headed by Lord Brahma goes to Kailash and they beg forgiveness from Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva welcomed them very, very heartily. Heartily welcomed, he offered his respects, stood up, and all demigods were so touched by Lord Shiva's welcome. Because it is told in this chapter that Lord Shiva is Vatsalya Loka Mangalam. He considered whole world as his children. Actually, we are children of Lord Shiva because all jivas come to this world through Lord Shiva. So, because we are all children of Lord Shiva is always concerned about our welfare. So, Srila Prabhupada emphatically stressed on this point that Vaishnava is actually real well-wisher of the whole world. So Lord Shiva agreed, okay, since you all want, I am ready to do what you wish. So Brahma told Shiva what is expected. Brahma requested that you are the supporter of the Brahmanas, you are the supporter of Varnashram, you are the supporter of the sacrifices. So please revive the incomplete sacrifice of Daksha. Please give him his life back. Please give Bhrigu his mustache back. Please give Devatas their real situation, real position. They are now distorted, broken. How they will act, how they will serve in their position. So please reinstate everybody in their original situation. And that's how we will complete the sacrifice and please Lord Vishnu. So Shiva agreed. He came and he gave Daksha a new life. He gave a goat's head to Daksha because Nandi already cursed that Daksha will have a goat's head. So Lord Shiva gave goat's head to Daksha, but his life was saved. Everybody, whatever they lost, somebody lost his teeth, they got back. So everybody was having facility so that they can conduct the sacrifice again. And Lord Shiva said a very nice thing. He said, I do not speak about or think about the offenses committed by my children because they are controlled by Lord's Maya. I just punish them so that they can learn. They can revive their dormant Krishna consciousness. They can get rid of their offenses They can get rid of their bad habits. So that's why I chastise them. And therefore, Lord Shiva is our father in one sense, that he is there to guide us. One time, Srila Prabhupada was chastising his close disciples, so much so that they were trembling. And Srila Prabhupada was chastising like thunder. So when they came out, they were sweating, trembling, crying. So Prabhupada's sister Pishima, she saw that these devotees are so much affected by Prabhupada's anger. So Pishima went inside, just opened the door, and she started to tell, because it's his brother, she can tell anything. So Pishima came inside room and just started to blur out. He said, how can you chastise these boys? They are dedicated yourself, their lives, and you're chastising them and they are crying. And as Pishima was saying that, she noticed Prabhupada was crying. He said, why are you crying? Prabhupada said, I don't feel good when I chastise them. But I think that if I'll not chastise them, how they will learn? So it is my thankless job to chastise them. So although Lord Shiva chastised Daksha, but that is for his betterment. Daksha learned his lesson and Daksha offered prayers to Lord Shiva. That, O Lord Shiva, although I offended you, but you have punished me being merciful to me. This is because you never neglect any devotees like me. Even I am not devotee, I am like a Brahmana Bandhu. I am supposed to be a devotee, I am supposed to be a Brahmana, but I am just posing as if I am a Brahmana without having any qualities. Still, you are not neglecting me. Because you and Lord Vishnu are so merciful, you never neglect anybody. So that's how Daksha offered his prayers. Lord Shiva gets satisfied and they complete the yajna. And then Lord Vishnu appears. Lord Vishnu appears, all the demigods offer their prayers, and that's how the yajna gets complete. And Lord Vishnu told to Daksha, Daksha, never commit such offenses again. Myself, Shiva, and Brahma, we are same. Don't ever offend them. And Lord Shiva offered beautiful prayer to Krishna, Vishnu. Lord Shiva says, Oh my Lord, let people like Daksha criticize me. Because when I meditate on your wonderful lotus feet, these criticisms doesn't affect me. I can tolerate everything in this world if I just meditate on your lotus feet. So please be merciful unto me that I can always focus on your lotus feet so that nothing of this world can affect me. So that's how Lord Vishnu gets satisfied with all the demigods, all the participants of the yajna, and Daksha worships Vishnu, Lord Shiva, and others. Then all demigods go back to their places. Sati gets rebirth as Parvati and again gets married to Lord Shiva. And finally, Lord Vishnu gets back to his abode. So, in the end of these 7 chapters, Maitreya Rishi says that whoever hears this pastimes or narrates this pastime with devotion, all sins get destroyed. Just like Lord Shiva's mercy, Daksha's sins were destroyed, and it led to Lord Vishnu personally come and bless him. In the same way, whoever hears this pastime, this is the Falashruti of this episode, whoever hears this, all sins get destroyed. And then somebody can have faith in the lotus feet of Krishna. So, in essence, we can learn that how Vaishnava Aparadh distance us from Krishna. The more we offend Vaishnavas, the more we go farther from the lotus feet of Krishna. Even Krishna doesn't help such person who offends his devotees. Like our Acharya told, Haristane aparade tare harinam, Toma stane aparade nahi paritran. If you offend Krishna, then holy name can deliver. But if you offend Vaishnavas, there is no remedy other than begging blessings from the same Vaishnava. So, Bhagavatam, many, many examples like this. We pray in the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada that by his blessings we are getting access to these purports We are getting access to these pastimes. We can learn from them, remain careful not to offend Vaishnavas, and with full dedication, we can serve as devotees. So, with this, I will end. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare
Jai
Krishna.
Prabhupada ki jai. So if there are any corrections,